Chapter 89 to 90. Nice, Goten. You and Trunks did a great job this time around. You didn't disappoint me, Beerus said, looking at Goten with a pleased expression. Although he had expected this outcome, Goten's strength was undeniable. Unless the Sixth Universe had fighters on par with a Hakaishin, no one could have been Goten's opponent. Hit was strong. If it were anyone else, it would be really difficult for them to deal with Hit. But against Goten, his time-skip ability wasn't enough. Beerus-sama, now that I have defeated the Sixth Universe participants, what about our agreement? Goten reminded Beerus with a smile. He had negotiated that if he won the contest, the Super Dragon Balls would belong to him. At that time, Beerus claimed that he had no interest in the so-called Super Dragon Balls. Do you think I, the mighty Hakaishin, would break my promise? I'm not interested in those so-called Super Dragon Balls. After the battle, you can take them away. Beerus waved his hand generously. His primary goal was to humiliate Champa and show how weak his Sixth Universe was. Now that he had achieved that, he had no use for the Super Dragon Balls. After all, as the Hakaishin of the universe, he already had a lot of power, work when he wants to work, and sleep unscrupulously when he didn't want to work. Look for delicious food. This was his favorite life in the first place. And he didn't have much ambition, so he didn't need Super Dragon Balls at all. Then thank you, Beerus-sama. Goten quickly expressed his gratitude. At this time, Beerus couldn't resist taunting Champa. Having delayed his sleep to defeat the Sixth Universe, he needed to savor the victory. If he didn't take a dig at Champa's miserable defeat, he would feel too sorry for himself. Champa flushed with anger at this moment, but there was no way for him to retort to Beerus's taunt, because their Sixth Universe lost so thoroughly this time. In a fit of rage, he declared that he would directly destroy the 5 participants participating in the contest. In his thoughts, it was these 5 useless scumbags that made him feel so humiliated in front of Beerus. Hit and Caulifla were terrified. Although they were powerful within the universe, especially Hit, he knew the gap between them and a Hakaishin was insurmountable. Hakaishin had mastered the power of a universe's laws, and if he wanted to kill a mortal like them, it was really too simple. Even his time-skip ability would be ineffective. At this time, Goten looked absent-minded. All his thoughts were not on the fate of Sixth Universe participants, let alone on the Super Dragon Balls. Instead, his eyes were constantly sweeping, observing the movement around the unknown planet. According to the development of Dragon Ball Super, Zeno and his guards appeared after the match between the Sixth Universe and the Seventh Universe, but there was no sign of them, no trace of divine ki, nothing. This made him wonder if his participation had changed something and if Zeno would even appear. After all, it was reality now, and it was different from fiction. Goten, I see that you have been absent-minded and looking around for a while. Are you searching for something? Whis asked, noticing Goten's distraction. It's nothing. I'm just curious about this barren planet, Goten replied evasively, unable to reveal that he was waiting for Zeno. Time passed slowly. Champa continued berating Hit and the others, while Beerus watched with satisfaction. Suddenly, 3 figures appeared in the center of the arena. Goten was the first to spot them. Zeno and his 2 guards had arrived. The moment he saw them, Goten frowned. Zeno's guards noticed Goten's gaze and glanced his way, making Goten feel a chill of dread. Just a few seconds later, Vados and Whis also noticed additional presence, and they immediately looked at its source. Zeno-sama, how is this possible? How could Zeno-sama come to such a place? Whis was surprised. Zeno rarely left his temple, even if it was something important. Most of the time, he usually sent the Grand Priest to handle matters. But today, Zeno came personally to the unknown planet. Although he couldn't guess why he would come to this place, he was certain that Zeno's arrival meant trouble for Beerus and Champa. As Zeno had forbidden private contests between gods of destruction, Even if there was a contest between two universes, Zeno must agree. But this time, Beerus and Champa obviously completely disobeyed Zeno's order. Zeno's style of doing things was like a child's, unpredictable. A single moment of unhappiness could make a dozen of galaxies disappear in the blink of an eye. It looked like Beerus and Champa were in danger today. In the sixth universe's audience stands, Champa's rage escalated. He prepared a destructive energy in his palm to kill the 5 contestants. Perhaps only by killing the 5 in front of him could he feel a little better. And after discovering Zeno had appeared, Vados also immediately opened her mouth to remind him. Champa-sama, shut up, Vados. Even if you beg for mercy, I will not forgive these trash who shamed me. And you bear responsibility, too. In the entire 6th universe, you could only find these 5 useless fighters. Champa cursed, blaming Vados for their loss. He felt that Vados was also partially responsible for the 6th universe's loss to the 7th universe today. He clearly asked her to choose the strongest fighters from their universe. But the ones she selected were all arrogant bastards whose words didn't match their strength. Especially the first 3 who were instantly defeated by a single Trunks. These guys were absolutely unforgiving. Champa-sama, I am not interceding for them. I want you to take a look in the direction of the ring, Vados said lightly. She was only responsible for finding contestants. As for how Champa would deal with these contestants after the contest, she didn't care at all. Damn it, you're so annoying, Champa said coldly. Then he looked toward the direction of the arena with great reluctance. It was okay if he didn't look at it, but once he did, Champa was so scared that he sweated profusely and his body trembled instantly. Zeno-sama! How could it be Zeno-sama? Why would he come to such a remote place? Seeing that very familiar face, Champa's body trembled as fear spread through him. Zeno's presence meant their private contest had been discovered. This could lead to their erasure. It's over. It's over. Zeno-sama found out about the private contest between the 6th universe and the 7th universe. This time it's really over. We will be completely erased. On the other side, Beerus reacted similarly under Whiss's reminder. His joy turned to fear, and his body trembled uncontrollably. Krillin and the others noticed Beerus's fear and followed his gaze. Seeing Zeno and his guards, they were puzzled. Why was Beerus so scared of these 3 funny-looking characters? Who are those 3? Why are Beerus-sama and the Hakaishin of the 6th universe so afraid? Krillin asked in a low voice. In their impression, Hakaishin seemed to be the supreme gods. In the universe, there should be no creatures that could make them afraid. But why did the 3 funny-looking guys have such a deterrent effect? Trunks and the others also looked puzzled. Goten didn't answer, simply shaking his head. Now that Whis and Beerus were near him, it was naturally impossible for him to admit that he knew those Zeno guys. If he showed that he knows Zeno and the others at this moment, he would definitely be suspected by Whis of being a time traveler. It would possibly cause unnecessary troubles. In the face of absolute strength, this was obviously a relatively stupid approach. At this moment, Whis continued to remind, Beerus-sama, it's inappropriate for us to sit here and look down at Zeno-sama. Damn it, you should have reminded me earlier. Of course it's not appropriate. Beerus cursed. He was just dumbfounded just now, so he completely forgot that he was sitting at such a high place. He immediately flew in front of Zeno at the fastest speed and knelt down in front of him. Champa and the Kaioshin followed suit. Zeno-sama, I apologize for not noticing your presence sooner, Beerus greeted, his voice trembling. Zeno-sama, why have you come to such a remote place? Champa asked tentatively, his fear evident. Was Zeno fed up with the contest between the 6th and 7th universes, leading him to consider destroying them? Perhaps the two had been neglecting their duties for centuries, attracting Zeno's attention, or was he taking legal action against them for different offenses? To Champa, it seemed very likely that someone sued Beerus for his misconduct. because the relationship between Beerus and several other Hakaishin was not very good. So even if he was sued, it didn't seem to be something incomprehensible. Zeno-sama, it's been a while. We're glad to see you well, Vados and Whis greeted Zeno respectfully. I came here primarily to check on how you, the Hakaishin, are doing. Zeno glanced at Beerus and Champa, who were trembling with fear. It appears that things aren't going so smoothly for the two of you, Zeno's voice continued. Didn't I clearly state before that universes are not permitted to engage in private conflicts? Or did you two not listen to me at all? Although Zeno's voice and tone were no different from a 3-year-old child. But just these few words instantly made Beerus and Champa sweat profusely with fear, feeling enveloped by death. Because as long as Zeno wanted to, he could wave his hand and let the two of them completely say goodbye to this world, even the souls would disappear together. Hey, Zeno-sama, Champa-sama hasn't trained at all in the past 100 years. I've also been handling many destruction tasks on his behalf. His body is out of shape, and he even despises the nutritious meals I prepare. Vados immediately seized this opportunity to complain, adopting a pitiful demeanor akin to a mistreated daughter-in-law, and began to snitch on Champa to Zeno. But what she said was technically the truth. It was because of these hundreds of years of laziness and unwillingness to train that Champa's strength was getting worse day by day. The current him was estimated to be at the bottom of the 12-universe Hakaishin. Before the conflicts between the Hakaishin were restricted, he was very fit and was at least able to fight against Beerus. Beerus-sama prefers sleeping and eating more than his duties. Whis also seized this opportunity to file a complaint. And after hearing the words of these siblings, Beerus and Champa's teeth were gritted. It was fine for these two bastards to contradict them occasionally. After all, Angel's strength was so strong, they simply couldn't do anything about it. But now, they had chosen this serious moment to snitch, pushing them closer to death. Whis and Vados' words painted an even worse picture of their negligence. One must know that Zeno could make their two universes, including Hakaishin, disappear in an instant as long as he was unhappy. Whis, you bastard! You didn't lose a portion when you ate, did you? Beerus cursed wildly in his heart, but the sweat kept dripping from his chin to the ground. Zeno remained silent, increasing their torment. They didn't dare look at his face. The Kaioshin trembled in fear, knowing that if Zeno killed the Hakaishin, they would die too. Yeah, this is quite irresponsible, Zeno finally spoke. Then let's change the Hakaishin for both universes. After hearing the complaint from Whis and Vados, Zeno thought for a while, then said calmly. Replacing a Hakaishin seemed to be a very easy thing to him, not even worth mentioning. As soon as Zeno's words came out, Beerus and Champa were so frightened that they almost fainted. Replace Hakaishin of both universes? Wasn't it obvious that Zeno decided to erase them directly? Under normal replacement procedures, they would first find the candidate Hakaishin for their respective universe and then voluntarily offer their resignation. After getting the approval of Zeno and the Grand Priest, they could officially step down and enjoy a peaceful retirement. However, being directly replaced by Zeno was entirely different from resigning voluntarily. It meant they had made a grave mistake in their duties, giving Zeno every reason to destroy them completely. By ignoring Zeno's orders and privately conducting a contest between two universes, what they did today had indeed reached the point of annihilation by Zeno. They were now drenched in cold sweat, trembling with fear, and the ground beneath them was soaked. The Kaioshin of the two universes felt equally wronged. They were merely informed by their respective Hakaishin to watch the contest, never expecting to face such a dire fate for just observing a game. At this time, they didn't know who to tell the grievances in their hearts. Zeno-sama, Beerus-sama has done an excellent job over the years. Just now, I only pointed out his shortcomings, not his strengths, Whis spoke up, realizing the gravity of the situation. His complaint was intended for minor punishment just to make fun of Beerus, not for Zeno to replace Beerus altogether. He didn't expect that things would blow up to this point. This was beyond his expectations. Vados on the side also echoed, "Zeno-sama, I was the same just now. Champa-sama has many advantages as well. Replacing the Hakaishin would bring about an unknown successor and disrupt the familiarity established over hundreds of millions of years. If they were replaced by a new Hakaishin, it would take a long adaptation process." Beerus and Champa felt no gratitude for the pleas on their behalf. If it weren't for these two bastards who sued them for their lazy behavior, Zeno might not have considered their replacement. At this moment, this was only one thought in their hearts, that they wanted to beat up these two bastards. In the 6th universe's audience stands, everyone was surprised and curious. Those arrogant Hakaishin, reduced to trembling figures on their knees, was an unimaginable sight. In most people's eyes, Hakaishin was the supreme god. Kaba turned to Hit, asking, "Mr. Hit, what's going on? Why are the Hakaishin from both universes so scared? Who is that child?" Hit, who had lived for thousands of years, might know more. Perhaps he would know who that child was, which made those Hakaishin so fearful. Caulifla and the others looked at Hit, and were also quite curious. Just now, Champa was so arrogant and threatened to destroy them and their respective planets, but now he was scared like a grandson. The gap between before and after was indeed a bit too big. TN. "Come here, grandson. Let this Granddaddy Herbert show you Mantitai." "I don't know who they are, but I hope their presence can save us," Hit replied flatly, fearing death more than others despite his long life. If Champa was replaced, maybe they wouldn't have to die today. On the 7th universe side, similar doubts arose. Beerus, usually aloof, now seemed so distressed. "It's unbelievable that such a powerful Hakaishin is this scared. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it," Krillin remarked. Seeing the surprised crowd, Goten also lowered his voice and explained, "There's nothing surprising about that. Although Hakaishin are supreme gods of their universes, that little guy is the master of all universes. He holds the power of a universe's laws. With a flick of his finger, he could wipe out all 12 universes. In his eyes, Hakaishin are insignificant. If you had to describe it, then that little guy is the supreme emperor, and Hakaishin can only be regarded as the magistrate of a certain county at best." In fact, his metaphor was very appropriate. The emperor does have absolute rights. Wanting to kill a county magistrate in a certain area was just a matter of one sentence. What? The master of all universes? After hearing Goten's introduction, everyone was in disbelief, because the three guys who suddenly appeared didn't look like any powerful characters, but Goten described them as an emperor-like existence. It seemed that they really had underestimated the power dynamics of their universe. "Goten, what should we do now? If Beerus-sama is replaced, will we be implicated?" Krillin asked. Goten nodded seriously, acknowledging the danger. If even those scary Hakaishin had to tremble before these beings, then they, as mortals, were probably like ants in front of those three guys. Not even an ant, but a speck of dust. It's possible. After all, that guy has the power of being able to wipe out multiple universes in an instant. It is as simple as playing house for him. Goten nodded seriously. Zeno was unpredictable. He acted like a 3-year-old child. Everything he did was on a whim, so no one could guess what he would do. What would he want to do? Zeno-sama, we know we were wrong. We won't dare to conduct competitions between universes privately again. Zeno-sama, please spare us this time." At this time, Beerus and Champa, who were already trembling with fear, begged for mercy. They didn't want to die. Especially after living for such a long time, they cherished their lives even more. "You guys were a little too disobedient," Zeno replied, not ready to let them off easily. "These kind of disobedient Hakaishin who were so lawless should be erased directly." Erasing them was as simple as a flick for him. Even if these two universes disappeared, it would have no effect on him. After a moment of thought, he turned to the seventh universe with a smile, having thought of something fun. I suddenly thought of a very interesting thing. Your fate will be in your universe's hands. If they choose to become Hakaishin and replace you, you will be destroyed. If they refuse, you might still have a chance. After finishing speaking, he showed a sly smile towards the two of them. Beerus and Champa were terrified. Hakaishin was a supreme god of the universe, a position which had great rights. No mortal could refuse the temptation of the position of Hakaishin. Does he want those guys to replace me? Damn it. Those bastards will definitely not refuse because I almost killed them just now. Champa's complexion became very ugly at this moment, and the sweat drops on his forehead became denser. If Zeno hadn't appeared suddenly just now, he would have killed all those guys. And now, Zeno actually wanted those guys to replace him? Then they would definitely not refuse. If it was for survival, they would never refuse, and maybe by accepting, they could even get revenge on him. It's over! This time it's really over! Beerus on the side was also not so relaxed. Because Goten did have the Hakaishin level strength, so he was fully qualified to be the Hakaishin of the seventh universe. He felt that no one could resist the attraction and temptation of this position. But he couldn't do anything now, because this was Zeno's order. At this moment, Zeno looked at Goten and hit, because he saw all the battles between the sixth universe and the seventh universe just now. Both guys did really well, especially Goten. His strength must have had reached the level of Hakaishin. And when Zeno pointed at Goten and hit, the two guards beside him appeared in front of them like ghosts. Hey, Zeno-sama wants to see you! Zeno's guard spoke to Goten. Goten nodded quickly. These three guys in front of them were countless times more terrifying than a Hakaishin. As long as he made them a little bit unhappy, maybe their universe would be annihilated in an instant. Goten naturally did not dare to act arrogant. He was even more afraid to be audacious in front of Zeno like Goku. Then the two bodies flashed and instantly appeared in front of Zeno. Greetings, Zeno-sama! Goten greeted with a bow. He knew that before he had absolute strength, he must not do something disrespectful if he wanted to live. Arrogance without strength was not confidence, but stupidity. This kind of stupidity might ruin his own life. Hit, unaccustomed to bowing, remained composed. The performance of the two of you in the contest was excellent. I enjoyed watching it. Zeno changed his expression when he looked at Goten and hit. There was a shallow smile on his face which seemed harmless, totally like the 3-year-old next door. But Goten remained cautious, knowing the danger beneath Zeno's demeanor. Thank you, Zeno-sama, for your compliment, he replied respectfully. I asked for the two of you to come here, but I actually wanted to ask you both a question. Would you like to be the new Hakaishin of the 6th and 7th universes? These two have made serious mistakes, and the angels say they are too lazy for their duties, Zeno said bluntly. Both Goten and Hit were surprised by the offer. They didn't expect Zeno to make them the new Hakaishin of the two universes. Both of them frowned slightly, carefully considering the implications of such offer and how to respond to it. They understood the risk of offending such a powerful figure. If they were not careful, they may lose their lives. Beerus and Champa, now more terrified than ever. Now, as long as Goten and Hit nodded, then the two of them would be completely destroyed by Zeno soon. Both of them looked at Goten and Hit with begging eyes. Vados and Whis also stared intently, waiting for their response. Everyone knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hakaishin! Goten, hurry up and agree! This is a very good opportunity! Krillin and the others clenched their fists tightly, obviously looking forward to Goten's answer. They naturally wanted to get Goten to agree. If they have a good friend who becomes Hakaishin, they will have many advantages and wouldn't have to worry about Earth being destroyed by Beerus on a whim. Watching Goten and Hit thinking, Zeno continued to ask, How about it? Do you want to become the Hakaishin of the two universes? This is a very good opportunity. There was no sound at this time, and everyone was looking forward to the answer from the two of them. They had to admit, this was indeed an opportunity to reach the sky in one step. As long as they nod their heads, they could become the supreme gods of a universe. To be honest, it was difficult for ordinary person to refuse such an opportunity and temptation. After all, many people might be able to withstand the temptation of money and beauty, but few people could withstand the temptation of absolute power. Zeno-sama, thank you for your appreciation. I don't think I am qualified to be Hakaishin in terms of strength or ability. Beerus-sama is very responsible, and I hope he continues as the 7th universe's Hakaishin. This would be beneficial for our universe. Goten respectfully declined, having no interest in the position. Beerus had been good to him too. If he took Beerus's position for himself, then Beerus was likely to be completely erased by Zeno. As a friend, he didn't want to see this happen, and becoming Hakaishin was not a wise choice before he had absolute strength. Most importantly, he felt that this matter was far from that simple. His instincts warned him of a trap. It seemed like Zeno had other ideas in mind. Huh? Really? Do you really think so in your heart? This is a very good opportunity. You don't have to be worried, because once you become Hakaishin, Beerus can't do anything to you. Hearing Goten's answer, Zeno was a little surprised. Unexpectedly, Goten refused so easily and praised Beerus for being responsible. This was indeed surprising. After hearing Goten's answer, Beerus burst into tears. He swore in his heart that from now on, Goten was his benefactor. If something happened to Goten in the future, he would do his best to help him. Regardless of if I will be erased by Zeno-sama today, thank you, Goten, Beerus thought sincerely in his heart. Goten continued seriously. Yes, Zeno-sama, that's what I think. So please let Beerus-sama stay as the Hakaishin of the 7th universe. I believe Beerus-sama will do better in the future. Hearing this, Wes was also quite moved. It seemed he hadn't taught the wrong people in the past 2 months.